for a general audience, okay, as well. Humor is very, we have to be sensitive with humor as well. Okay, so I'm gonna share your responses anonymously so we can kind of see the kind of feeling that we got, if it was funny, not funny, or whatnot. So let me just open this up. That is the one nice thing about Google Docs, is we can kind of see the results anonymously. Okay. And let me also open the jokes as well so we can see side by side here. Give you 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to do a split screen so we can see the joke in question and then our class response. And let me open the graph here. Sorry, you don't see it, but when we do Zoom, teachers have so many windows open to show. You don't see it, but I have like about 20 windows open, to monitor the Zoom, monitor this, go in the breakout room, take attendance. So, all right. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. I'm going to do a split share. All right. Okay, so the joke is on the left, okay, and our response is on the right. Okay, so the first one was about the doctor. Okay, a man tells his doctor, "Doc, help! Help me! I'm addicted to Twitter." Okay, and the doctor replies, "Sorry, I don't follow you." Okay, so 60% got it. 40% didn't, so it was a little bit split down the middle. Okay, so this joke is the type of joke that has cultural kind of connotation in it, meaning that you have to understand the culture of social media, specifically Twitter. It's not Twitter, it's X now, I guess. To understand the punchline of the joke. Punchline means like the funny part of the joke, okay? So, as you know, a lot of people may go to the doctor to kind of help with addiction or bad habits, like could be someone's addicted to some sort of medication, or maybe alcohol or something where it's overused and they're trying to quit or reduce the use of it. So in this case, this person is addicted to social media, specifically Twitter, okay, which has been seriously looked upon as, some sort of kind of addiction type of mental illness as well, And so he says, "I'm addicted to Twitter," and the doctor replies, "Sorry, I don't follow you." So usually when we say sorry, I'm not following, or I'm not, it usually means I don't understand. Okay. So in this case, the doctor replies, "Sorry, I don't follow you." It could mean, "Sorry, I don't understand what you're saying." But that is not the funny part. The funny part is which word here? Does anybody know who got it?
It means that doctor doesn't follow the person on Twitter.
Yes, good. So it is a double meaning. Okay, so follow is kind of the technical Twitter word for meaning like you are subscribing to somebody's tweets, like whenever they write something, it pops up, on your Twitter account. Okay, so that's what we say, follow. So it is a word that's commonly used, with social media like Twitter, Instagram. I think Facebook uses it as well. And so it's a joke because it is the play on words, double meaning, saying follow you, meaning like I don't understand, which is common, for a doctor to say, or using follow meaning like Twitter, because he says I'm addicted to Twitter. So they use the technical word for Twitter, follow, meaning like I don't know what you're saying because I don't follow your subscription or your account. All right. For those who didn't get it, is it funny now or still the same? All right. Does everyone understand though the joke itself?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Yeah.
the answer could be that's so funny.
Okay. So there's no specific answer. It's basically your opinion. So if you
Okay,
thought it was funny, so this
Okay.
is kind of practicing the response, but also knowing what you think is funny. Some people didn't. I did this in another class before, and they didn't think it was funny. They said that's silly. That sounds like a kid joke. All right.
Excuse me,
The next-
can I ask?
Uh-huh.
Can can I answer for this? It's so sad.
We don't usually use for jokes so much. If you say like it's so sad, I think a native speaker would kind of interpret that as that's pathetic, like a bad joke.
Okay.
But
Mhm,
yeah,
I
but
got
I
it.
think you're trying to convey it as like it's sad, meaning it's not funny, right?
Right.
But we'll take it a different way, meaning like, oh, that's really like, for example, when let's say like somebody has like a cake, they bake a cake for somebody's birthday and it looks really bad because they're not a good baker. We look at the cake and we say, oh, that cake is sad, meaning it's so pathetic, don't give it to that person.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it doesn't mean sad, like, oh, it's so bad it makes me cry. It means like bad or pathetic or, yeah. So sometimes
Yeah.
for me, like when I bake something, like my cousin is a good baker and I try and hers looks so nice and mine looks so bad. She goes, oh, that's so sad. Don't do
I
it.
see. I think. Thank you for
Yeah.
explanation.
It's so bad.
That's a good joke.
Yeah, that's a joke. Okay. Yeah. So she says, oh, that's so sad, meaning that if you give that cake to somebody, it looks so horrible, they're gonna start crying. Don't do it. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's take a look here. The next one. Okay, maybe you got this one. This one is a little bit more straightforward. So let's take a look at our groups here. Okay, so looks a little bit better. What's an astronaut's favorite part on the computer? A space bar. So you get space, astronaut, so they are related words. Okay, and then also space bar, on the actual keyboard. Okay, the space bar. Okay, so a lot of us got it. It's hilarious or it was silly, meaning maybe usually when we say silly, it could also be very childish, like something that we would say to a child and not a kid, or a child and not adult, where language is more supposed to be more formalized, more advanced. Okay, good. But this one, it is using related words and double meaning again. Okay. The next one, why did the frog take the bus to work? So we've got, that's too much, that went over my head, and then that's offensive. So why did the frog take the bus to work today? His car got towed away. Do we understand this one?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
So what is the kind of the key word here that makes it funny?
Toad.
Toad. Okay. So what does T-O-A-D mean? Toad.
It's type of frog.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But when we say the pronunciation, what does it sound like?
It's
No
like
way.
your car broken and you need to tow it away.
Yes. So
Toad.
T-O-W. Correct. So this is what we call a homonym type of humor that we use in writing. Let me just do a share here. Okay. So, the character is the frog and a synonym is toad. Okay. But here, why did he take the bus? His car got towed. So this is frog. But the homonym for this word, meaning homonym is a word that is same sound, but different meaning. Towed. Okay, towed meaning like tow truck. When your car breaks down, they take the car away. So here his car got towed, T-O-W-E-D, but they use the spelling of toad, T-O-A-D, frog. Okay. What do we think? Pretty clever? Yeah, not really?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. But does everyone kind of understand?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So the next one here. Okay. Why did it get so hot in the baseball stadium after the game? All the fans left.
Professor, sorry, interrupt you. The first, you did not share the right spring. The
Which one?
second, oh yeah, now it's
Okay,
it's
sorry.
So now, the second part is I did not get the meaning.
This one? Which one?
The number 3.
The green one.
Yeah.
Oh,
So what's
sorry.
that mean?
So the funny part is the play on the words. They use the homonym. So why did the frog, so the animal, take the bus to work today? His car got towed away. So usually when the car doesn't work, we spell it this way, towed, T-O-W-E-D, meaning to take something away. But they used toad. It has the same pronunciation, but toad means frog. Do we understand?
So in this joke, is that's too much or that's went over? my
So
head,
it's
or-
whatever you think. It's whatever you think. Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just whatever you think, and then you can choose the correct one. So for this one, a lot of people said that it was kind of split. Some people didn't understand. Some people thought it was funny, and some people didn't think it was funny at all. Okay?
Okay,
Yeah. So you choose the response based off of your own opinion. Mhm.
I see. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We're almost done here. So this one, it looks like we didn't get. Okay. Did anybody get this one? We only have 20%. All right. So let me explain it. Okay. So why did it get so hot in the baseball stadium after the game? All the fans left. Okay. So the reason why this is funny is because in a baseball game, the people who watch the game, they are called fans. Okay. And so why does it get hot is because all the fans left. So when the game is over, okay, people leave. People leave. So the fans leave. But another meaning for fan, so this can be like air conditioner. You know the air conditioner, right? Like a fan.
Yeah.
Oh, it's double meaning too.
Double meaning.
Yeah. So if it's overlapping,
I
it's
understand.
hard to catch this answer.
Yeah. So when all the fans are gone in the room, it gets hot, right? Because the air conditioner's not there, the fans are not there to cool the room, right? Do we understand? So it's double meaning.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So this is why kind of reading humor in text is a little bit hard because, you have to know all the meanings of the words. So, of course, native speaker would get this one, but yeah, sometimes it's lost in the translation. All right. So that one proved to be a tough one here. Okay. So our last one, looks like most people got it. Okay, what did the shark say when he ate the clownfish? So clownfish is like Nemo, if you know Disney, the Finding Nemo movie.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And so he says, it tastes a little funny. Do we get the joke here?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Because clown is, okay, someone that makes you laugh. Makes you laugh. Okay, so like a funny fish. And so that's why he says, oh, tastes funny because it's a funny fish. All right. Okay.
Right
So-
now, clowns is not funny.
So this one's not funny. Okay. All right. Yeah. So you know, it's person to person what people find funny and what people don't find funny. But a lot of these are all types of humor that we use in writing and reading where it takes a lot of play on words and vocabulary. Okay. So over the next week, I have a few activities to kind of help you understand what kind of humor this is and what we officially call it. Okay, so here there is a genre of humor vocabulary activity. So this is just a game for you to familiarize yourself with some of the terms that we use to categorize humor. So for example, let me just do a new share here. Okay, so the words in the colored boxes, these are kind of genres of humors or category or group of humor that we have in the English language. So for example, a series of stories with characters dealing with daily life in funny ways. So for example, Friends, if you've ever known that TV show Friends, it's about a group of friends that are kind of just dealing with their daily life and then the funny things that kind of happen to them. Yeah, do you know? Yeah, so this one is commonly called a sitcom. So sitcom is a word that's made out of two words, situation. So sit is from situation and com is from comedy. And so we put it together and say sitcom. Okay. So these are all the types of humors that we possibly have, you know, that we use to make humor in writing or media. Okay. So humor based on physical actions that are funny. Does anybody know this? No? So this is sometimes an example of this would be maybe somebody intentionally, like on purpose, trips to make something funny, you know, happen. Like maybe they trip or they fall down, something physical with their body.
Stand up.
Not quite stand up. So this one, yeah.
It's slapstick, yeah, because
Slapstick.
three of us doesn't fit.
Yeah. So stand up is more for comedians when they stand in front of the audience and tell kind of funny stories, you know, to make people laugh. So that's a little bit different type of humor. Okay, so this is just to get you familiar with some of the terms we'll be reading about, and you can kind of test yourself with your current knowledge at this point. Okay, so you can kind of see some of the words we use. You may know this type of comedy, but maybe not know the official label of it. Okay, so that's something to work on over the week. Another thing that you'll be working on is a kind of, let me just go ahead and publish this, preview. Oops. Okay, so this is a dialogue here. So this is a dialogue about different types of humor that specifically used in British English. Okay, but we also use it here in America as well. Okay, and so you can also listen to the dialogue. There is the actual listening and follow along with the script. And it points out several different types of humor. Some of them that we saw today when we were in our groups, okay, looking at the jokes. Some of them had double meaning, some of them had homonyms. Okay, so this will explain that type of humor. Okay, so if you feel like listening to the conversation as you read along, the audio is here. And then there are a few questions to demonstrate understanding at the bottom when you're ready. Okay, so this is on Canvas as well for you to kind of familiarize with some of the concepts in the jokes that I shared with you today. Okay, all right. So those are some of the kind of introduction activities, some of the new terms that we'll be encountering as we continue with this unit. So the first grammar part that we'll need for our eventual writing is the direct speech here. Okay, so I'm going to open this one up here. And if you were in our class earlier, okay, in the semester, a lot of times we studied indirect speech, so noun clauses, and when we report speech, reported speech is also what we call it. So we heard somebody say something and then we kind of paraphrase it and report it back, you know, to someone else or to another party. And we don't use the exact words. And sometimes we do that because it is too hard to do exact quoting, okay? But when we do writing with, you know, humorous kind of intention, so like writing an anecdote where we write about kind of a funny personal experience that we either observed or we experienced ourselves, usually in order to kind of convey the funny parts or the punchline of the story, we use dialogue. And dialogue is written in direct speech format. Okay, so word for word, we don't change things and paraphrase them.
You might.
Yeah, we actually write everything out, and we use quotation marks, certain structure, and certain types of mechanics to indicate, you know, what part is what is said, and what part who said it, and then what part is the description. Okay, so that is kind of the formatting that we're going to study here and practice first. Okay, so let's take a look here. So here in the box, this is an example anecdote. Okay, so we'll eventually be writing our own, but an anecdote is a short story or kind of observation or something that we have experienced or observed personally. And it's usually short. So it's not a novel, not a short, like kind of a paragraph or an essay. It's usually only about this long. Okay, so about a paragraph at the most long. Okay. Now, we use this type of writing, as a hook to an essay. So we use something kind of funny to capture the reader's attention, you know, for our writing. So we can use this in both kind of creative writing, fictional writing, and non-fictional writing, like reports, academic work, speeches, things like that. Because either way, we need to make sure that our writing is interesting, that it holds the attention of the reader or receiver, and they want to continue reading our work. Okay? Now, but we want to make sure that we don't go so off topic where our story gets so long that we forget the original kind of goal or objective of our writing. Okay, so usually it is a paragraph at most long. Okay, and so as you can see, there is kind of some descriptive work here. So description, there is no speaking here. It's kind of setting up the situation of the story. But the characters, if you look here, okay, are talking. So we're indicating in our anecdote, okay, what they're saying. So we're doing word for word quotations. We're not paraphrasing, you know, and kind of generalizing the situation. Okay. So the first thing that we need to do when we write this type of writing is formatting. Okay, we have to make sure that the reader knows when we have direct quote or direct speech. Okay, so we have to make sure it is separated from the rest of the text. So just like when we start a new paragraph in an essay or a story, we indent 5 spaces in. Okay, so in this case, okay, this is kind of the description paragraph. We indented, it's a new paragraph, okay? But when we begin the text, so the speech part, so what somebody says, we also need to indent that information as well. Okay, so here, this line here, these words are spoken by the man in the story. Okay, so this is the first thing he says. We have to indent and put spaces. Okay. Now, the man is finished speaking here. Okay. So, in a conversation, the second speaker is going to speak. So, we need to let the reader know that the second speaker is speaking now. So, again, we have to indent. So, here we indent a new paragraph, but as we keep writing, and this is the same part of paragraph, we don't indent. But when we start a conversation, we indent. When the second speaker starts, we indent. Okay. When another person starts speaking, we indent again. So there are three people speaking in this dialogue here. And we have to make these spaces so the people who are reading our story or our situation understands that there are three different people here talking in one conversation. Okay, so you always have to indent, every new speaker of conversation. Okay, so here the man is speaking, indent. Here the grandma is speaking, indent. Here a woman across the street is speaking. Here the grandma is speaking again. So it's no longer the woman across the street, it's the grandma. So new speaker, we need to indent. Okay. And then here, this is more description about the situation. We have to indent. And so the reason why we do this is so that the reader who reads our writing can understand what is happening. So here is a description paragraph. Here, I'm moving from the description paragraph to the first speaker. Now I'm moving to the second speaker who's responding. Now there is a third speaker in the conversation. And that is so we can understand what is happening in the story. Okay? Do we understand?
Yes, I've got one question.
Sure.
So usually we do use commas after the word said and before the quotation marks, right? So for example, great concern and said, comma, where. And we usually use it before the word said, but after the quotation mark, for example, in the sentence, or I'm sorry. So there would be no comma before the word said, right?
Yeah, so it depends on if it's a completed sentence or if the reported verb has kind of separated the whole utterance. So it kind of depends if it's two separate sentences that are being spoken or it's one sentence with the reporting verb trying to indicate who's saying it. So that's a really good question. And then I'll get to the punctuation rules next. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, because that's also very important. So here is just the formatting. So how many spaces we put so people know, who's talking, what it is, and if it's new speakers or not. Okay, all right. So the next one is what Victoria has mentioned is the punctuation. And even native speakers have much trouble with this because it is so complicated with the rules. Okay. And, you think commas are not so important because they're so small, they're small punctuation. But people who write this kind of text, like in the script, and, publish it for actors who have to perform it, the commas are really important because it shows where there's a dramatic pause or where they're supposed to breathe or where, to indicate the punchline is coming. Okay. So there are different kind of ways where we can put the comma, put the period, put the exclamation mark. Okay, so it all depends on where the reporting verb goes in the sentence. Okay, so if you decide to put the speaker and the reporting verb before the quotation, there is a comma after the reporting verb. So for example, Mr. Johnson replied, comma, okay, that joke went over my head, okay, and then the period is inside of the quotation mark, not outside, okay. And so the reason why we do this is because it's showing that Mr. Johnson, we're kind of telling the reader who said it, and then next, this is what he said. So we don't really like read it, like if we were to say this verbally, we don't really say, Mr. Johnson replied, that joke went over my head. That's kind of a lot. We can't, if we speak like that, we can't tell what he said, what's, what the, who or what, because it's all jumbled together. But if we read it with a comma, it makes more sense. So Mr. Johnson replied, pause. That joke went over my head. So now we know who said it and then what he said, because there's that space or that pause, and that's what that comma is for, okay? But you want to make sure that you do put the comma after the reporting verb, okay, not in the quotation marks here. And then when the sentence or utterance is done, we put the period in the quotation marks. So this could also be the exclamation mark, the question mark, but it always goes inside the quotation mark, okay? And that's really important because then we know that this sentence that the person said is finished. There's no other part of it, okay? Now, there are other situations where we can kind of move the structure around. We can move the reporting verb. And we do that because we don't want our writing to seem like we're following the same pattern, because then it gets boring. So there's situations where you can move the reporting verb and the speaker at the end, okay? But if we do that, then we have to make sure that our punctuation changes as well. And that's where native speakers, who have been going to school since they were born in America, still make mistakes because it is so detailed depending on where you're putting the verbs. So in the first example, please don't do anything silly. Okay, so here we don't end it with a period, we end it with a comma, okay, in the quotation mark. And then we put who said it. So Mrs. Johnson said it. Okay, so it indicates in this part who said this sentence. Okay, so just like if we put it in the front and there's a comma, we do the same thing here where we need a comma before, it gives us the information who said it, but the comma has to go in the parentheses because it is attached to the actual quote here. Okay, or here it comes outside. Okay, so it's a small thing, but it is important, for the reader to understand, who's saying what. Okay, here, didn't anyone find the practical joke offensive? Because it is a completed question, okay, we don't need to add a comma. Okay, so we just put the question mark, the parentheses, and then there's no comma here. Okay, because the question is complete. You don't need to mark it with another comma because there's a pause after the question. Okay, that's too much punctuation to have, a question mark and then a comma and then a quotation mark. Okay, so you don't need that many. Here, there's nothing. There's no period, so we just put a comma. Okay. When we have an exclamation mark, so that's when we want to say something very loudly or with emphasis, that's absolutely hilarious. We just put the exclamation mark and then the closed quotation mark, no comma. Okay. So the only time we use the comma in this sense is when there would be like a period, okay? But instead of using a period, we use a comma just to show that pause. But we cannot use a period when it's a question or exclamation mark, because this is kind of changing the way how something is said. Like when you're asking a question, our intonation goes up. And so that's why we cannot put a comma, because it's not a pause. It's more like it's an intonation that goes up. Like, didn't anyone find that practical joke offensive? Where don't do anything silly, it goes down. Don't do anything silly. So we can use a comma in place of a period because the intonation stays the same, or it goes down. Okay? Here, that's absolutely hilarious is said more with louder intonation. That's absolutely hilarious. That's why we cannot put a comma or a period, because then it will change the actual meaning of what this person's trying to convey. Okay, so if it is punctuation like question mark, exclamation mark, we put it in the quote with no comma. Okay, if it is a period like a statement, we use a comma instead of the period. Okay, it is very complicated and very so small and specific, but it is important that it's done correctly, because otherwise sometimes when there's a lot of dialogue, like if you read in a novel and the author has or the editor hasn't done it correctly, people can get confused who's talking at that time. Okay. All right. So we're running out of time. I apologize for that. But there is one last thing here, and this is the structure of the utterance or the quote, where you can break it up. So you have one quote and break it up into two parts. Okay. Or you have two completed quotes and you split them, even though they are independent clauses. Okay. So I'll let you do this one on the own. And then kind of just for practice here, I have a story. Okay, it's supposed to be a funny story. Okay, and you can kind of see the example of how the quote is formatted with punctuation and indentation. Okay, and so I want you to read the story. And the last line of this conversation is missing. So I want you to write what you think this person is going to say that makes this story funny. So there is an example here. Okay. So just read the story. Okay. And then read the example. And we'll just do this independently since we don't have time for group work. And then we'll review it in the next session. So this is just to kind of get you thinking about the format, kind of the quotation, and get used to using it. So you can write the response in any way. You can use it, write it this way with the reporting verb at the end, or you can write it with the reporting verb at the beginning. Just make sure that you adjust your punctuation depending on what you write. Okay. And then finally, there's a kind of quiz on this one, okay, just to see if you understand the rules of the direct speech. And then we'll practice more in the next Zoom session, okay? And then eventually we'll be writing this type of grammar in our kind of final writing assignment that's coming, that I'll talk about a little bit later in a couple of weeks. Okay, everybody?
Okay.
Okay. All right. So you can work on those throughout the week, and take your time to go through them. Okay. And then please remember though that our next Zoom will be on the 2nd. Okay. I'll put that as a reminder on Canvas as well. Okay. Ninoska, did you have a question?
Yes, I have a question about the topic before. What does it mean when somebody say the joke, I don't know, they say was or were over my head?
The joke went over my head.
Yeah.
So we say that when we don't understand the joke. And yeah, and the meaning of it is usually when we understand something, we process it in our head, right? In our mind. And so if we don't understand something, then we kind of say that, it went over our head. It didn't go in our mind.
Oh, okay. Got
So
it.
that's where it came from. So that's why when we don't understand something, we say, oh, it went over my head, meaning like, oh, it didn't go in my brain for processing because I didn't understand.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, everyone. So thank you
Okay.
for coming today.
Okay.
And
Thank you. Yeah.
yes,
Thank you.
all
Thank
right.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Professor.
Bye.
Happy
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.